Jon Lord was a great organist, but Highway Star proved he was one of the great rock soloists, period. Let's get into it. Starting at number 10 with a deep cut for most casual fans, Rat Bat Blue from the final Mark II studio album before the breakup. This is Lord in full experimental mode, and while it's not the most accessible solo on the list, it's fascinating for what it reveals about his creative range. This solo sits in the middle of a strange, almost prog arrangement, and Lord leans into dissonance, phrasing lines that sound like they're searching for resolution and never quite finding it. I feel this solo almost serves as a bridge between his work on Highway Star and Burn. What keeps this at number 10 isn't a lack of quality. It just doesn't have the immediate impact of what's ahead. But for what it is, a master musician experimenting at the edge of his band's sound, it's a reminder that Lord was always thinking beyond the next obvious lick. Hard Lovin' Man is where Mark II truly announced themselves, and while Blackmore's guitar solo gets most of the attention, Lord's organ work is what gives this song its relentless drive. The solo section is a masterclass in building tension without ever letting up. Well, what strikes you first is the rawness. There's a grit in the tone and an almost distorted edge to the Hammond that matches the aggression of the guitars. This was definitely amped up from his Mark I work. The placement at number 9 reflects Lord finding his voice in the Mark II lineup. The ideas are there, the execution is perfect, but there's a directness to it that later songs would enable him to expand upon. Here's the surprise pick. Rosa's Cantina from the Steve Morse era. Yes, we're jumping all the way to 1996, past the reunion era, where I feel Lord was somewhat sidelined, into a completely different lineup. And yes, it absolutely deserves to be here. By 1996, Lord had been playing professionally for over 30 years, and you can hear that maturity in his solo. It sits in a sort of a mid-tempo groove, and Lord uses that space to craft phrases that are melodic, harmonically and rhythmically interesting, and just perfectly placed. What makes this work is the restraint. This is Lord in a new or return to broader context, adapting his style to fit Morse's very different guitar approach, and to a band rediscovering jazzy elements for the first time in over 20 years. It's at number 8 because, while it's excellent, it's competing against some, just revolutionary work from the classic era. But this speaks to Lord's consistency and, absolute continued excellence. Speed King opens Deep Purple in Rock with an organ intro that immediately announces, this ain't your father's rock and roll. Lord channels Little Richard's piano energy through a Hammond, and then launches into an instrumental solo section that is just impeccably tight. The call and response is a sprint. Lord is playing at breakneck tempo, the Leslie speaker whirling, and the distortion, turned down just a bit, and every phrase locked in with Paice's drumming. There's just a technical mastery here. This is the first song on In Rock, and Lord showed he could play loud and fast. As an opening statement for an album that changed heavy rock? Oh, completely. Lalena is Mark I Deep Purple, and it's here at number 6 because it captures Lord being his most lyrical and jazzy self. This is a kind of a ballad, which means the solo has to carry emotional weight rather than rely on speed or volume, and Lord absolutely delivers. The phrasing is gorgeous. Long, sustained lines that sound almost vocal, building from quiet introspection to these soaring peaks and back down again. This is Lord bringing his prior training and experiences into rock without losing the finesse that makes them work. What's remarkable is how well this holds up against the Mark II classics ranked above it. It's at number 6 because the solos are doing more ambitious things structurally, but purely as a piece of lyrical taste, this is just so enjoyable. Fireball is manic energy from start to finish, and Jon Lord's solo doesn't just match that intensity, it gives it shape. This is Lord playing fast and loud, but also with intent. Even at full throttle, there's a clear sense of direction, which is why the solo rewards repeated listening rather than just collapsing into chaos. The tone does a lot of work. That overdriven Hammond just has an urgent sound. But Lord isn't just tearing through runs. He's building phrases that linger at that speed. Ranked at number 5, this solo captures Lord at a transitional moment. The band is tightening its direction and sound, and you can hear him reaching beyond it, hinting at the classical and progressive instincts that would, become central to his style. The higher ranked solos are where that synthesis is fully realized, but Fireball is the sound of that coming together in real time. Before we move on, I'd like to say that if you enjoy this kind of deep dive, like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Lazy is the extended jam, and for Lord, it's an opportunity to show everything in his arsenal over the course of several minutes. This isn't just one solo, it's a journey, with multiple peaks and valleys, constant interplay with Blackmore's guitar, and enough ideas to fill 3 separate songs. The brilliance is in the pacing. Lord starts off, like Blackmore, bluesy and relaxed, almost jazzy, letting the groove settle before gradually increasing intensity. But unlike a lot of extended solos that just get louder and faster, Lord constantly varies this approach. Different techniques, different harmonic ideas, different dynamics. It lands at number 4, not because it lacks brilliance, but because its greatness comes from sprawl rather than focus, and the top 3 are tighter, more defining statements. Here's the one that started it all. Hush was Deep Purple's first hit, and Lord's organ work is why it worked. That solo is just so recognizable, and a proved rock organ could be a lead instrument, not just decoration. What makes this special is how Lord takes a relatively simple song structure and turns it into something, pretty substantial through his playing. The solo has melodic clarity. You can almost sing along to it. And there's a harmonic sophistication that keeps musicians interested. It walks the line between being accessible and impressive. It proved the Hammond could anchor a hit song. It established Lord as an innovator. While there are solos ranked above it, without Hush, Mark II might never have happened. If you want to hear Lord at peak technical ability, peak speed, peak aggression, Burn is it. This is Lord matching Blackmore riff for riff, run for run, proving the organ could hang with the guitar even at the most extreme end. This solo is relentless, and that Baroque synth bit, come on. So why number 2 instead of number 1? Well, basically, I think number 1 is even more iconic. Here it is, the definitive Jon Lord solo, the one that influenced generations of rock keyboardists and proved that the Hammond could do everything a guitar could do. And that remains the benchmark 50 plus years later. The solo isn't just compositionally perfect. There's an introduction, development, climax, and resolution. So Lord just isn't showing off. He also, like Blackmore, has constructed a piece of music that just happens to be a solo. The technical mastery is in service of the musical idea. Yes, he's playing fast, incredibly fast, but every note is purposeful. The movement is sophisticated without being pretentious, and the rhythmic phrasing is tight without being mechanical. Let me address the inevitable comparisons to Blackmore's solo in the same song. They're both brilliant, and they're both number 1 on the respective lists, and that's not a coincidence. Highway Star is the moment where Deep Purple achieved its perfect balance between guitar and organ, where both instruments were given equal space to shine, and where both players rose to the occasion with career-defining performances. Highway Star sits at number 1 because it represents everything that Lord was capable of at his absolute peak on the album that defined heavy rock organ for a generation, in a solo that proved keyboards could be just as exciting as guitars. This is the one where Lord demonstrated that technique, melody, and structure could coexist at the highest level. That's why it's number 1. So there you have it, my top 10 Jon Lord Deep Purple studio solos. Did I get it right? Most likely not for everybody. You might think lazy should be higher, or that I'm overlooking something in the Mark IV era. And that's cool. Drop your own top 10 in the comments and let me know where I went wrong. This continues the series looking at the greatest solos from Deep Purple's musicians. We've covered Blackmore, and now we've covered Lord. Tommy Bolin, Steve Morse, and Don Airey are coming, and those lists are going to look completely different. Have a great day.